Hi ladies, welcome to biology. This is your first notes on characteristics of living things. So there's a variety of different characteristics of living things that all living things have in common. Number one of these things is that all living things are cellular. Cells are basically the smallest units of living things. Okay, they come in two different types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cells would be something like bacteria. Eukaryotic cells would be like animal cells or fungi cells or protists or plant cells. And what's different about them is they're different size. Okay, eukaryotic cells are usually larger. They have different organelles, and eukaryotic cells will actually have a nuclei. We're going to be spending more time on this topic, so just get the basics for today. Cellular organisms can also be unicellular or multicellular, so they can have one cell or many cells. And usually in multicellular organisms, these cells are very specialized. Okay? They have special functions. So in your body, for example, you have special cells that make up your kidney, okay, that do the function of removing waste from your body, or in your lungs to help you absorb oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. So we have multicellular organisms like us have very specialized, their cells are very specialized. The second characteristic of life is that organisms need to obtain and use energy. So basically what you can think about this, or one of the big ideas of this, is metabolism. So all the chemical reactions that are occurring in a cell are occurring in an organism. Anabolism is using energy to build complex molecules. So in your body, after you eat a big meal, you will actually build glycogen. And this glycogen is what your body's going to use to kind of make it possible for you to make it to the next meal. We're going to spend a lot of time on this. Catabolism is breaking down these molecules. So when you eat something, so say you're eating pasta for dinner, there is a lot of starch in that pasta. Your body will break down that starch into something that you can use to make energy. We can also look at different types of organisms and how they obtain and use energy. Autotrophs, for example, will make their own energy. Okay? These are the plants. They go through photosynthesis to make energy. Heterotrophs must consume other organisms in order to get that energy. The third characteristic of life that we're going to talk about is maintaining homeostasis and responding to the environment. So basically, homeostasis is a constant internal environment. So organisms have to make sure their pH stays in the appropriate range. Their temperature stays in the appropriate range. They have the right amount of water and fluids. They don't have too much salt. Okay? They have the right amount of salt. They have the right appropriate amount of gases, not too much carbon dioxide, enough oxygen to nourish the cells. Also removing anything that shouldn't be there. And then responding to the environment, you want to think about the idea that organisms receive a lot of stimuli from their environment, and they have to respond appropriately to that stimuli. The fourth characteristic of life is basically, I kind of lump it into continuity of life. So all organisms came from a common ancestor, which means that all organisms are going to have DNA, the universal genetic code. Okay, this universal genetic code is based on 4 different nucleic acids, okay, just in different patterns for different organisms. Okay, and then these organisms will use that DNA to make proteins. Okay, and you could look at a gene in a human and compare it to a gene in a fly, and they could be pretty similar. In addition, all these organisms must pass this DNA on to the next generation when they reproduce. Okay? If they don't reproduce and pass on this DNA, okay, the species would go extinct. There's different types of reproduction. You could sexually reproduce, okay, bringing egg and sperm together, or there's asexual reproduction. Okay, pictured here on the right, you can see this little hydra over here is actually forming a little bud. That little bud is a copy of the parent and will just kind of break off and go on its own. And then once all these organisms reproduce and produce offspring, all these offspring will then have to grow and develop into the adults. The adults will then reproduce, and this just continues life, okay, the continuity of life. Okay, life will continue to go on. The last characteristic of life is that populations evolve over time. Okay, so we have a variety of different ways that populations evolve. Okay, they evolve to get specialized features. If you look at Darwin's finches, those organisms evolved from one common ancestor and developed all these different features. Bacteria, okay, there's this bacteria war for resistance. Okay, bacteria are developing resistance, and then humans, we have to develop more powerful antibiotics to fight off these bacteria, and then the bacteria develop more resistance. Okay, these populations are co-evolving with each other. You could also think about human height, for example. Humans used to be a lot shorter. If you look at old armor that was from the Middle Ages, the people were very, very small. Nobody nowadays can really fit into those coats of armor. Bees and flowers. Okay, flowers evolved to attract bees, so the bees could take the pollen and spread it to other flowers. They co-evolve together. Okay, flowers give the bees food, and then the bees will spread the pollen. Or toxic frogs. Okay, these organisms have evolved this specialized trait over many generations and maintained that trait in the population because it's beneficial. So these are the 5 characteristics of life that we are going to be talking about in class for the next couple of days. Please bring any questions you have with you. Don't forget to fill out and bring your Cornell note sheet with you too. Have a nice day, girls.